Today's topic sounds a little bit boring, but actually, as I was doing research on the book, I discovered this is not boring at all. I'm talking about trade agreements. Trade agreements, actually, a lot of the pretty humorous anecdotes that I discovered had something to do with food. So, for example, there was the chicken wars, which started in 1961, when France and Germany imposed tariffs on US chicken. Because at that time, after World War II, chicken was a luxury product in Europe. It was something that you would have on Sunday dinner. And now all of a sudden, this inexpensive American chicken was flooding the market, and European farmers were not too crazy about that idea. So the tariffs on US chicken by the Europeans led to Lyndon B. Johnson retaliating by imposing a tariff on European trucks. And even though this tariff was on cars, they still called it the chicken tax. So the chicken tax in America was on European trucks. And this was really 1964 when the entire idea of protectionism for American car manufacturers was initiated, and it still continues today. You might remember the Inflation Reduction Act from last summer, which was American government, American taxpayers supporting American electric vehicle manufacturers. So Americans buying American-made electric vehicles, which of course the European car manufacturers were not too crazy about. Speaking of food, there was also something called the pasta wars. This was in 1985 when it started also in Europe. The European farmers wanted to protect themselves against American citruses. And then Americans, of course, wanted to sell their inexpensive citruses in Europe, didn't like the Europeans raising the price, so they retaliated by imposing a tariff on European pasta, which of course Europeans did not like at all. There has also been something called the banana wars, the late 20th century, early 21st century. This was between the US and Central America and Caribbean. It was not just about bananas, but about all kinds of products that were being shipped across the borders at that time. Closer to current day, there was, during the Trump administration, you probably remember the Chinese steel tariffs. So a lot of talk about China and US and how they are interdependent, but also trade war is something that's been ongoing. And it was not just all about steel, because once you start to do this tit for tat retaliation, you end up increasing the list of products. And some of the products on that tariff list included dentures, for example, fake teeth, flamethrowers, and cassette tapes. 2018 cassette tapes were on the list of those tariffs. Which leads me to actually the point why I wanted to make this video about tariffs today. I read an article on NPR yesterday about the Biden bringing back industrial policy, which, according to NPR, means using taxes, regulations, and tariffs to influence one's economy, which is something all countries are doing all the time. So not sure how Biden is bringing it back, but maybe he's just bringing it back to the conversation. The Chips and Science Act from last year is at the center of all of this. The Chips and Science Act really addresses technologies and industries that are critically important to national security. So you have nanotechnology, artificial intelligence, quantum computing, and one of the main products is, of course, semiconductors, because during COVID, we saw how the sourcing channels, the procurement channels for semiconductors are affecting not just consumer electronics, but the manufacturing of cars, and over 100, almost 200 industries were affected by this shortage. So the US administration wants to reshore manufacturing of semiconductors and other products And by doing this, they're launching something called Made in America. So when they initiated the act last year, you would have to have 55% of your product made from American raw materials or American components. This year, 2023, it's 60%. And the target for the administration is by 2029, 75% of the value of your product has to be made from American materials in order for you to call it a made in USA product. Now, for semiconductors, this might be a little problematic because semiconductors are actually only made of metals. There's silicon, obviously, but there are other types of minerals and metals that go into semiconductors. So there's tin, gallium, arsenic, even mercury, telluride, germanium, all kinds of different minerals. And if you would want to make a made in America semiconductor, you would need to have 75% of all of these minerals from within the boundaries of the United States. And I'm not sure if this is possible. So the point of my video and the point of the trade agreements is I have this map in my book about countries with most trade agreements. And when it comes to tariff deals with friendly countries, and hopefully the Chips and Science Act will be able to carve out exceptions for these critical minerals, more is more. So as a country leader, you really want to have as many trade agreements and tariff deals as possible with friendly countries. You can do it bilaterally, you can be in blocks. Chances are your country is already a member of the World Trade Organization, which is great, and you should be active there. And just to close the loop, actually, it's kind of funny that the World Trade Organization, much like United Nations, was founded after World War II to enhance peace. And then what happened was all of the wars that we just called the chicken wars and the pasta wars and so forth. But anyhow, if you're interested in tariffs, trade agreements, you can read more in my book or leave comments or questions in the YouTube chat below, or just email me, Petra@petrasutherland.com. Thank you.